Hi guys, I have another video for you, and today I'm going to talk about weather at Disney World. And I have a lot of things written down on my list here, so if I look down, that's why. So my first tip is to check the expected weather. A lot of people have no clue. They assume that Florida is always hot. And for example, in the winter months, it is actually not hot. It's, it could be in the 60s Fahrenheit. So in terms of wearing shorts and going swimming, that can be too cold for a lot of people. And a lot of people don't plan accordingly, and their kids are wearing shorts and t-shirts in early January when it's only in the 60s. So a lot of times it's not quite what people expect. A website that I really like using is AccuWeather, and that's AccuWeather.com, AccuWeather. And you can type in Orlando, Florida, and you can go by the month, and you can see the historical averages, which is really great for the temperatures for if you're planning a trip, say 6 months from now. Obviously the weather isn't going to be predicted that far out, but you can go and see what the historical averages are for that time of year. Now, like I mentioned, a lot of times in the winter, it's a lot colder than people would expect, and people want to visit the water parks. Now, something to be said for Disney is that their pools, the water at the water parks, are heated, as well as their resort pools. However, the air is not. So you get in the pool or go down a slide, and then you have to get out into the non-heated air. So again, if it's 70, 72 degrees Fahrenheit, that's really cold, in my opinion, to be standing outside in your suit. In addition, Disney has to do a refurbishment of each water park once a year. So they do that in the winter months when it's cooler and fewer people are visiting their water parks. So they will close one at a time. They'll close Typhoon Lagoon for so many weeks at a time. And then once Typhoon Lagoon is done with the refurbishment, then they'll close Blizzard Beach. So it's good to check out the dates of that if that's important to you as well, and see if the water parks are going to be open before you actually purchase a Water Parks Fun and More pass for the winter months. And that would really apply for, I would say, December through February. If you're going December through February and you are hoping to visit the water parks, check and see which one is going to be open, because likely one of them will be closed during that time of year. Another thing I wanted to mention is that, as a lot of people know, Disney World can get very, very hot, especially in summer. And sunscreen is imperative, which again, I think a lot of people know that. However, a lot of people don't know that there is a recommended dose of sunscreen. So you are supposed to use, for an adult, 1 ounce at a time. Now, if you look at how many ounces are in a bottle, it is, you can usually be around 8 if you're using the actual cream. So it's a lot more than you would think. It's not a little bit goes a long ways. You need quite a bit of sunscreen. So when you are in Florida, especially during the warmer months, and it is very, very, very hot and you're sweating, you're gonna go through a lot of sunscreen. So pack accordingly, and remember that it's not a little bit goes a long way. You need quite a bit of sunscreen to have accurate coverage. Now, in terms of rain, there are a lot of tips out there about visiting Disney World while it's raining. So a lot of people recommend bringing ponchos. Something to think about with ponchos is, first of all, if you get them before going to Disney World, they'll be a lot cheaper. They do sell them at Disney World if you need them, but they're the Disney branded ponchos and they're more expensive. Now, that being said, if you go to Disney Springs, they do have a few non-Disney owned stores that might sell ponchos in their gift shops. And I'm thinking, like, there's a Raglan Road, which is a restaurant. Their gift shop sells ponchos that are cheaper. But when you're wearing your poncho, say if it's like you're out in the rain all day, when you go on a ride, they may ask you to take your wet ponchos off so you don't leave the seat all wet for the next people. And in this case, what are you gonna do with it? My recommendation would be, presuming you're going on a ride that's covered in kind of inside, when you go inside, shake your poncho off and bring a bag with you that you can put it in, maybe like a plastic grocery bag or something, and then put that in a backpack that you might be carrying, just so that you aren't just holding onto your soaking wet poncho and then thereby getting your clothes all wet, which is defeating the purpose. A tip that I read online, if you purchase a poncho at Disney World and it rips, you can actually bring it to any store that sells those ponchos and they will exchange it for you for free. So yeah, they're a little bit more, but it's nice to know that if they rip, they will exchange it for you. Something else to consider is don't forget about your stroller or your wheelchair or your scooter. Those things, if they're sitting outside and it rains, obviously are going to get wet, and then it's going to be pretty miserable for whoever is sitting in it. So you can get covers for these things, or I've seen recommendations where people bring a shower curtain liner and cover that, and then bring a heavy duty clip, like a binder clip or something, to clip it down. That's a great tip as well, so that you can keep it nice and dry during the rainstorms. I also recommend waterproofing your shoes beforehand, just getting the waterproof spray and spraying your shoes. I've mentioned before, I don't usually wear sandals at the parks. I do have a pair of Chacos that I'll wear, but those are, they're not flip-flops. There's a lot more straps, and they're just better designed for walking. They're better foot support and stuff like that, so they don't really rub as much. But if you have flip-flops that are totally normal and comfortable, same thing with Crocs. When they get wet, a lot of times you'll have a spot that will rub. And for some reason, it's very odd. You'll have, one foot that will rub only when it's wet. But this is very, very common. So for that reason, I don't like to really wear Crocs or flip-flops in the parks. Now, if I really insisted on it, I would bring Band-Aids with me. Yes, they have them at the first aid stations, and you can go and get a Band-Aid for free. And they do have first aid stations around the parks. However, if you have developed a blister on your foot and you have to walk to a first aid station, any distance is going to seem like a long ways. So I think it really is just easier. Bring a Band-Aid or two in your pocket. They take up no room, and then you'll be good to go in case that happens. But like I said, my preference is to bring shoes that have been sprayed with a waterproofing spray beforehand. Now, if your shoes, like tennis shoes, sneakers, whatever you want to call them, do happen to get wet, I have read tips. I've not used these, but I've heard that stuffing them with newspapers works really, really well to dry them out. And then you just take the newspaper out, and every time you notice that it's wet, take it out and replace it, and it absorbs the water from your shoes. Something else that we found out the hard way is I knew that Disney World rides will close if there's lightning in the area. That's not a big surprise. What did surprise me is that Indiana Jones closes when there's lightning in the area. So we had tried to watch it once, and it closed down because there was lightning in the area. And then, so we tried watching it the next time we were there, and then it closed because they were having technical difficulties. So we didn't get to see it at all, and that was a very frustrating trip. But I wouldn't have even tried. We went in there knowing it was raining, thinking, oh, it's nice and covered, we'll go watch the show. Well, no, it does. They do stop the show if there's lightning in the area, due to the safety, because it is a live performance, and it's covered, but it is outdoors, and it's not in an enclosed building. Another tip is don't presume that just because it's raining where you are, that it's raining everywhere in Disney World. Disney World is huge, and a lot of times it'll be raining at your hotel and not at the parks you're visiting. And now the great thing about having phones with internet is you can go online and check these things, see if it's raining. Just look at the radar online and see if it's raining at whatever park you plan on visiting. I think it's a good idea to always have a backup plan for when it rains, especially if you have little kids, so that you're not frustrated thinking, oh, now my trip is ruined, I spent all this money and I don't know what to do. There are a couple things that I keep in the back of my mind that are good options for if it rains. Keeping in mind, again, things will close down if there's lightning. So the first one is the Walt Disney World Railroad, which is at the Magic Kingdom, and it goes all the way around. That's one that I'm sure will close down if there is lightning in the area. But if it's just rain, that's a good option, you're covered. Ellen's Energy Adventure, that is in Epcot and in Future World in Epcot, and it's about 45 minutes. So a lot of times you just have a short Florida rain shower, and that is perfect. And I would imagine that it's entirely indoors, so I imagine that one would stay running when there is lightning. Another option is Hall of Presidents, which is in the Magic Kingdom. It's in Liberty Square. Tomorrowland Transit Authority, again in Magic Kingdom, obviously in Tomorrowland. And that would be one that I would expect would shut down if there's lightning, but if it's just rain, you would be fine. I forgot to mention Hall of Presidents, I would expect would still operate if there's lightning because it is entirely enclosed indoors. Carousel of Progress is another ride that is in Tomorrowland in Magic Kingdom, and that one, I'm not sure how long it is. It's at least 20 minutes, but that's another great option for if you see you're starting to get a quick Florida rain shower, duck in there, and when you come out, it will likely be done. Two other options for what to do when it's raining are both in Epcot, and one is the Land Pavilion, where they have Soarin', which is likely going to be a pretty long line if you don't have a fast pass. But they also have the Circle of Life show it's a Lion King show. It's more for, it's an environmental fable, they say, and it's more for children. But they have that. They have the Living with the Land ride. So, and there's a couple restaurants, quick service and table service in there. So there are some things to do, and it's a little bit bigger. You have some space to move around. You're not just huddled in a tiny little ice cream shop, which I've done as well. And my other thought is to visit the building that has the Seas with Nemo and Friends. So you can go in there. That ride almost never has any wait at all. And then when you're done, you can go and see all the animals inside. It's like visiting an aquarium. And that's a pretty cool option as well. But there's quite a few things to look at, and it'll take some time, but you won't just be standing in line doing nothing, so it'll entertain your kids a little bit. Now, I haven't personally tried it, but I've heard really good things about the Safari at Animal Kingdom in the rain. Again, will not operate if there's lightning, but if there's just rain, I'm told that the animals are really a lot more active, and you're enclosed when you're in the truck. You might get a little bit wet on the sides, but I'm told that it actually is a great experience, and usually the lines are shorter because it's raining and a lot of people like to leave. Now, there are hotel activities that you can do too. Look around your hotel, see if there's things to do. You can still swim as long as there's no lightning. They'll close it down, and it's very obvious if there's lightning and you can't swim. If there's arcades or if there's movies you can watch. At Wilderness Lodge, I think it was 2 times ago when my husband and I went, we went to Hollywood Studios, and it was raining harder than I've ever seen it rain before in my life, and I've been in a hurricane. It was absolutely torrentially downpouring. So we're like, okay, it was like that when we got off the bus. So we checked the radar. Is it going to keep raining, or is this just a short shower, really heavy shower? And no, it was going to keep raining all night. So we got back on the bus. We went back to our hotel, to Wilderness Lodge, and I had read something online about a scavenger hunt. So I went to the front desk, and they gave me this little sheet, and it's a hidden Mickey scavenger hunt for Wilderness Lodge and the Wilderness Lodge villas, which are attached via a covered walkway. So it was great. We were able to do that. And it wasn't, at first I thought it would be weird, like for little kids, but then the next time we went, we saw only adults with no kids doing it. And some of them were really hard. So I thought it was really fun. It was absolutely awesome. And then when we were done with that, we went and sat by the fireplace and read. It was a great night, which would have almost been ruined by the rain. So I hope you guys found this helpful, and try not to let a rainy day at Disney World ruin your trip. There are plenty of things to do, and the sun will come out again. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.